Many people have mentioned that the lady who responded now mentioned two key factors when you look at, on the one hand, issues like resources, but on the other hand, also the processes and the interaction. And in fact, if you look at the research, there are documents which show that factors which impinge on quality can be divided roughly into two. There are the structural characteristics, and these would include things like ratios, adult to child ratios, the furniture, the physical environment, the organization of the setup. But there are also process characteristics, and it looks more closely, or these factors look more closely at the interaction which is going on between the adult and the children, as well as the interactions which are going on among the children themselves. And in fact, research has tended to use both structural or process dimensions, or both, so either one or the other, to gauge the quality of preschool programs. As we said, structural measures include the staff-child ratios, staff qualifications, teaching experience and stability, health and safety factors, and physical setting, whereas the process measures refer to the quality of the interaction. But what is important to keep in mind is we will probably never quite agree. There isn't one single definition of what constitutes quality, because quite a fair amount of our discussion or decisions are determined by culture in which we have been brought up and the culture within which we are operating. So factors which contribute to quality are determined by culture. I don't know much about the expectation either of the Bulgarian parent or expectations of earlier staff. Two very contrasting examples here. If you have to look at the Scandinavian model, and you look at countries like Sweden and Norway, certainly amongst the quality factors which parents expect would be the outdoor environment, that the children spend a lot of time playing outdoors, or that the children spend a lot of time engaged in play, which is relevant and which is meaningful. So I wouldn't say that the Scandinavian model suggests that people are very keen or interested on, let's say, academic performance. If I had to look at the Maltese culture and the Maltese mentality, and Carmel can bear with me on this, I think that a number of parents would rate and decide on whether a setting is offering good quality service depending on how well children are prepared for school. In other words, we do have a fair amount of parents who would think that kindergarten, earlier services are a stepping stone for school. They want children to be prepared, and hence it is not unknown that in a number of our settings, in quite a lot of our settings, children are exposed in a way. They will tell you that we're doing it through play, but I have seen some rather formal situations where children have handouts to complete. They're doing their numbers, they're doing their letter recognition, so that they are ready for their first year of formal education. This is something else which I think I can share with you. Our children in Malta start compulsory education at the age of 5, which in many countries is still preschool education. Within Europe, most children start compulsory education at the age of 6. There are a number of countries where compulsory education starts at the age of 7. But there are yet some countries, about 6 or 7, where compulsory education starts at the age of 5. And we have to keep in mind that even though it's compulsory education, children at that stage are still very young. And it should not be a matter of once compulsory education, you start or you forget about learning to play. So this is why cultural expectations do determine what actually goes on up to a certain extent within the earlier settings. When we are looking at quality and quality of the provision, again, another dimension which you have to consider is how are you measuring or how are you assessing quality? So if you are looking at structural measures, ratios, number of children to adults, the size of the room, the physical resources available, that is something which is relatively easy to do. But if you're interested in finding out more about the process, the interaction, how responsive adults are to children, then I think it takes a different type of assessment when we are talking about how to assess quality. How do we know what actually quality is? I'm going to just go back to the factors. I'm going to speak to you about the study which I am currently doing in the local context. I have been interested in exploring quality and why quality matters and what it means to people here in Malta, because although we have had earlier services for about 40-odd years, we started with kindergarten for 4-year-old children in 1975. The service was extended in 1988 for 3-year-old children. We now have childcare services where in a very short period of time, we have had a sudden increase in the number of settings available. And unfortunately, there has also been a pattern in how the services came about. Services started, people wanted them, people expected them. We now have 100% attendance rate kindergarten for 4-year-old children. We have about 98% attendance rate by 3-year-old children. And childcare setups, although they are a recent phenomenon, and we have seen this last increase in settings available within the last 5 to 10 years. There are about 3,000 children attending childcare setups nowadays. I understand that in comparison to Bulgaria, these may be small numbers, but we also have to keep in mind the size of the island. We're talking about Malta, where our population is about 426,000 people. And according to the last census, the additional 26,000 people are actually not what we used to consider as homogeneous Maltese people, but they are foreigners, people from within European countries, people from non-European countries who are now working, living, and raising their families in Malta. So the last increase in the population has been attributed, the last 26 to 30,000 people increase in the population are actually attributed to people that have moved from other countries and are now in Malta. I'm saying that because that is creating also a new dynamic and a different scenario, even in our schools and in earlier settings, namely culture and communication issues. It's okay when we get children and families who at least have English as their working knowledge, but when we have families who, of course, do not speak Maltese or are still learning Maltese and are also still struggling with English, that is creating yet another issue which we need to consider when we're talking about quality of services which you are providing. Aside from that, my interest in looking at quality was that predominantly the training and of the staff who are working with the young children is something which has typically been done either while the employees have been engaged and therefore they are on the job, and training is done later rather than before they get employment. We have seen this with kindergarten assistants, and we have seen this again with childcare workers. So we seem to put the cart before the horse. First, we open the settings, first of the service, and then we begin to realize, oh, we need to train people here to work with young children. And it's precisely because if we look at our history, earlier services and policies have predominantly been directed at engaging or offering the possibility for women to join the labor market. So we look at the provision of earlier services as an economic reason, rather than for the benefit of children. And it is that which I am trying to research at the moment. So I have been doing interviews, focus group interviews with practitioners in earlier settings, both in the garden and in childcare. And I have sent out questionnaires to parents so that I will get views of both in terms of what do you think quality is, how do you define quality, and what do you think is important that should be going on in the earlier setup. I am still collecting the data, so at one time, not a stage where I can share results, but it has been very interesting speaking to people, especially the practitioners in their interviews, and beginning to understand the challenges which they face. So it's nice to say, yes, we all want to offer good quality, but there are certain factors which need to be addressed. If you look at the premises, if you look at the resources available, if you look at the ratios, they are crucial issues. Our ratios at the moment for kindergarten is 1 adult with 15 3-year-old children. It's 1 adult with 20 4-year-old children. And if it's younger than 3, if you are in a childcare setup where you have babies, there can be only a maximum of 3 babies with 1 adult. And when it's a mixed group, children between the ages of 1.5 and 2.5, 1 adult with 6 children. Again, I don't think these are the worst ratios in the world, but neither are they the best. And when you listen to professionals who are working day in, day out with these young children, you begin to appreciate the difficulties they have. When I asked you, what do you think are key factors, the first lady who responded from amongst you said that there is time to be with the children, there is time to speak with the children. That is extremely important and a very valid point. When you are 1 adult with 15 children, and among these 15 children, some of them may have special needs and we don't have additional support, I can tell you it becomes extremely difficult to be responsive to all the children, because there's 1 of you and 15 of them. And this is where high quality training also is a crucial factor, because I believe that in high quality training, you are obviously going to get insights into how to manage the group. You are also going to get insights into understanding children's development. And this is something which is crucial, and I think training needs to be looked at carefully. One of the questions I have asked the people participating in my study is, was your initial professional studies, coursework or training relevant to what it is that you are doing? Do you think it prepared you for working with young children? And unfortunately, I came across quite a number of people, not really, but the participants and gaining the experience are what really helped. Now, it's true that experience and work placements are very fruitful because you obviously get a real snapshot of what life in a setting is going to be about. But on the other hand, I think if we are going to give more importance to the work placement, to learning on the job, to finding out, this is where, as practitioners, we need to have practitioners who are reflective, we need to have practitioners who are critical, and we need to have practitioners who are carefully monitored and supported, so that they themselves grow in what it is that they do with children. practitioners need to be able to reflect, change, and modify what they do with the children in order to constantly give them a better service. And one of the ways in which practitioners are going to reflect on what it is that they do is precisely by spending time with children, listening to children, finding out what it is that they enjoy doing, in order to plan activities which will then address their needs, which will make the children curious, which will make the children engaged, which will make the children retain their attention span because they are sustained and involved in learning opportunities which are interesting and exciting to them. I think one of the key factors which would indicate what quality services are is if children manage to develop a love for learning, a positive disposition towards learning. And that comes from being in an environment which nurtures them, which supports them, which understands them, an environment where they feel safe, where they feel secure, where they feel comfortable, where they can trust the people they are working with, where they can be open, where they can be themselves. And this is where you need responsive adults. Adults who can key in to the children's different needs. Of course, when children come to earlier settings, they don't come in a vacuum. They come with their baggage. Whatever family upbringing, whatever support or lack of support they have at home, that is the baggage you are going to have to work with. And this is why it's important that at the beginning, when you are still welcoming children, when you're still getting to know the children, it's important as well that you get to know the family, that you get to know the parents, that you get to know where the child is coming from. It makes it easier for you to be able to work with the children and with the particular needs and interests of the child. I'm conscious of the time, and I think we have 4 minutes left. So I don't know if you want to ask any questions or whether there are issues or whether you have comments to make. I mean, do the factors which we mentioned resonate with you? Are they things which you think you have in place in your own work placement? Are there issues which you think you still need to address? Or are there other issues which I have not mentioned, but which are crucial for you?
So, guys, any questions, any comments?
So the factors are very close to the Bulgarian system.
I'm not sure if she's hearing us.
Yes, I can hear that.
Okay, that's wonderful, thank you.
And when you define actually the parameters of the observation, I think that it's possible to arrange the same questionnaire in Bulgaria. So because we have the same problem about the qualities and how it's measured. So it was very interesting. It's close to us.
Yes, that is something which I'm glad you mentioned that. You begin to realize that this is a whole complex issue because you're dealing with, first of all, you're dealing with human beings and we are all complex. Irrespective of our age, whether you're 3, 4, 2, or 15, complexities. We also expect professional service because professional service and the professional status comes with your qualification, but it also comes with your working conditions. Sadly, I mean, I referred to them as practitioners. We actually call our staff in kindergarten assistants, and we call people working in childcare workers or childcare assistants. Now, that is a misnomer. They do not assist anybody. If you are a kindergarten assistant, you're fully responsible for a group of 15 or 20 children. If you're a childcare worker, you're responsible for however many children there are. But we cannot call them teachers because they do not have a university qualification. And this is another issue that we have. Their qualification, the diploma which they get, is post-secondary. It is not university level. I believe we also have an issue because the entry requirements, when we issue a call for people to come and do courses in childcare and to be a kindergarten assistant, even the entry requirements, what they need to have to join the course is also very low. So on the one hand, we talk about quality and raising quality and standards, but on the other hand, the people who we recruit to come and work in the sector, academically, they could be better. And this is where the research has indicated that high quality training directly links to the provision of the service. I know it is a hot potato for us, because if you are going to suddenly raise the entry requirements for people to join, then you would expect that if they're going to have a university degree, then of course you have to increase their salaries. That is another issue. I told you about the working conditions. Our workforce in childcare, especially if they're working in the private sector, not in the state sector, are paid at pittance. They earn about €6 an hour, which is very low. So if you have, not kindergarten is a bit different, but in childcare, where you have most of the service is run as a private business or entity, and of course, you know, the private sector can't afford to pay high wages. I don't think you can expect very high quality. Having said that, and this is why I am doing observations in my study, I have definitely been impressed by the dedication and the commitment of the people who are working in these settings. So this is why I have this ambivalent feeling now about, you know, they definitely deserve to have a raise in salary, but I would also like to see them getting better qualifications so that they can reflect more on what it is that they are doing. But then the resources need to be in place, which you haven't mentioned, and it again concerns the human factor, is the leadership. Who are the people who are managing, who are leading, who are helping in the administration of the setup? It's one thing being a kindergarten assistant, a childcare worker, directly working with children, but you also need the support of the people who are managing, who are leading, and who are administering. And if you do get people at the head who themselves have not yet experienced directly working with young children, sometimes it is difficult for them to understand and appreciate the challenges and difficulties that we face. So I don't know if that is also an issue which you have in your settings.
Dear all, does anyone have any more comments or questions for our lecturer?
Actually, I was surprised about that. The problems are so close.
Well, we're all humans, I guess.
I think human nature is universal.
Yeah.
Part of it, again, depends on the history of how the earlier services have developed. It also depends on the rationale, that is why were early services necessary. And that's why I said, at least with us, but I know it's the same in many countries, the development of the earlier services actually coincides with the development of women in society. So if you look back at your history, irrespective of when, you know, kindergartens, childcare setups were introduced, you probably find that it coincides with the time when more women were joining or rejoining the labor market. And this is why I started by saying a lot of attention has been given to it by governments, especially because of perceiving this as a family-friendly measure. If we want people to come out to work, they obviously have to have a place where they're going to leave children. In Malta, we come from a society where up to a few years ago, many families rely on the assistance of the grandparents. So if young parents wanted to go out to work, because we're a small island and because we're all very close to each other, we would leave our children, let's say, with the grandparents. But again, that reality has changed because nowadays, some grandparents themselves are still working, are still in employment. So families needed to resort to outside help. So that could also be another reason. So this is why it's interesting to look at the history of the country, as well as the need and the rationale as to why we want earlier services. The importance of having high quality services, because as we said at the beginning, they do have long-term and short-term gains on children. It goes beyond simply getting children ready for school. It goes beyond socialization. There can be lots happening, but I don't think staff are necessarily aware. For example, one of the things I was speaking to with participants in my study, when I asked them, what are your expectations for the children? What is it that you want children to take with them when they are leaving your earlier setting and starting formal school? Several said, we want them to be prepared for formal school. They are talking about the big gap there is between being in kindergarten and starting with the first year of compulsory school. They are talking about making sure that they have their hand and pencil grip sorted out, because even in grade 1, at the age of 5, our children are exposed to writing. They have to write within the lines. They have to write on exercise books. Kindergarten is always being seen as a preparation for year 1. Now, sometimes I've come across people who are telling me we can already distinguish people, children, who have been in childcare as opposed to those who are coming from home. And I think this is where my alarm bells start going on. How can you distinguish? Because the children are already more settled and they're already eager or settling into a routine. So all the talk about play, moving around, I think goes out the window at a very early age, because we want children to settle down and there's always a preparation for what's going to come next. So do they really have a childhood? Do they still have a childhood? Can we really engage them in activities? Do we see sustained engagement? And sustained engagement is important because it will help them with skills like concentration. It will help them with motivation. It will help them later on with being analytic and critical about what they do. It will help them with being able to hypothesize what it is, an estimated guess, and therefore being a risk taker. Being able to collaborate. This is another phenomenon. We talk about collaboration and how important it is. Collaboration. We have student placements, and they come back and ask, children don't know how to do group work. Say that, you can trace it even back to the adults. The adults have, many of them told me, we do not have time to talk to each other. We go to our room, we have our children, and we are with them all day long. 5 days a week, every year. So if children do not see adults collaborating with each other, or they have minimal opportunities to collaborate, how then do we expect children to be able to collaborate themselves if they don't see us as role models? There's a lot where adults need to reflect on their own practices, on why they do certain things, their own philosophy, and this is why continuous professional development, monitoring and supporting practitioners at their place of work is, I think, a crucial dynamic which we need to look into more closely in order to make sure that quality is being raised across the board.
Well, thank you very much for your extended lecture. I guess we can say at the end of it that early childhood education and care largely still depends on adults, right? It starts with us. We were here first, I guess. If there aren't any other questions or comments, I would like to thank you in the name of the organizers of the event. Sorry for not introducing myself earlier. My name is Nadia, and I'm part of the host group. So thank you very much. I hope you hear us.
You're welcome. If hopefully I will get to meet you or some of you on some part of the globe, whether it's Malta, Bulgaria, or anywhere else. But as I said, I can send the presentation and then you can share that with everybody.
Looking forward.
Okay. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of your seminar and workshops.
Thank you.